Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Now, it's been a long while since I made videos, and this is also the first time that I will ever appear in one. So you're going to have to bear with me while I get used to looking at the camera and looking at notes. Now, with all that being said, welcome back. Coming back to YouTube after so long has made me look back on a lot of the videos that I used to make, and a lot of them concerned CW's The 100. Now, this is a show that had a special place in my heart, and I think it will for most people. Casting your memory back to 2014, this show originally aired in what I would call the peak of the teen dystopian media. We had things like The Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner, but I still think the one that did it best was The 100. This show for me is easily in my top 3 of all time. So, seeing an article a few weeks ago that was posted in February about how this old CW show on Netflix is a masterpiece was awesome. Seeing that there's still a lot of love for this show 4 years after it stopped airing is amazing. So naturally, I took to Reddit to see whether people were still talking about this old CW show. And surprisingly, yes. There is still a massive subreddit for The 100, most of which is just filled with complaints, questions, theories, and so I thought, why not read some of these and I'll give you my opinion on them. Now, obviously, there will be spoilers for pretty much the entire show, seasons 1 through 7, but the show is 4 years old, so I'm gonna assume you've watched it by now, and if you haven't, then you probably don't want to. A big one that I immediately came across was people asking about this guy. Now, in early season 2, Octavia by the river spotted this guy, and honestly, I don't even know if he has a name. My best guess is that this is a pretty just random freak drainer, which is basically just a person who has been mutated due to nuclear radiation. Very similar to a Mori who has a mutated hand. Now, this guy in the future poses no real significance to the story. It's possible that it was a completely abandoned story point and that he may have had significance down the road, but there is never really an answer for why this is here. It's quite possible that they showed this guy as a possible future story point and then sort of just forgot about him. Now, bear with me, this next one is long. Was Shadeheader the root of the Grounders' savagery and evil? Hi, just finished my second rewatch and I wanted to see some thoughts on something. Please correct me if I'm wrong. In Season 7, we are introduced to Calliope, one of the first Grounders and Flamekeeper. We aren't shown a lot of Calliope after she leaves the bunker and reaches the surface. Before starting her journey to find a commander, we can assume, unclear, some time passes, and we get a few commanders before the clans are rolled under Shadeheader. Shadeheader is a psychopath. He slaughters any who dare oppose his rule. Children, infants, women, and unborn children the like. His own advisors and 3 Flamekeeper from clan to clan, their villages are slaughtered. Which brings us to my thoughts. How exactly did the Grounders, who started off as a peaceful climate change activist group, turn into warriors, assassins, and is it fair to say Shadeheader's rule turned their society into savages? Was his reign so dark that it scorned these people into committing abhorrent violence for decades? We could infer the commanders previous to Shadeheader were good people, and they had a well-intentioned society before he was called to leave. Or did Calliope do it? So there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, I do think it's a bit weird that pretty much all technology was forgotten by the Grounders. Over the space of 100 years, Calliope leaving the bunker and the 100 starting, pretty much all technology was forgotten. Which is strange considering Calliope had engineers as scientists in her group. Perhaps Calliope and her original crew died out, and they quite simply didn't share their knowledge very well. It's also possible that other crews likely refused to use modern technology. You've got to remember that Tree Crew was led by Calliope, but only that crew. You could argue that Asgeta, Flow Crew, and Sangeta Crew and the others may not have been part of the original group, and may have been other groups that survived the apocalypse. I was curious what the comments were on this one, and a lot of people seem to think that it's simply an oversight by the writers, and hey, that's quite possible too. They had to try and make it make sense, and they did the best they could. However, I believe it is quite likely that Shadeheader was a large reason for the crews being so distant from one another and very distrustful. Up next, am I the only one who absolutely hates the ending and season 7 as a whole? Now, people have mixed opinions. There are a lot of posts like this. One very specifically asked, if you don't like the later seasons, what is a good stopping point? Now, season 3 was originally supposed to be the end of the show. It isn't until very late in production that Jason Rothenberg was told that he could have more seasons. And therefore, season 3 was supposed to end with Clark and her group accepting the City of Light and becoming a part of Ellie. It wasn't until very late in production that they changed this so that Clark and her group rebelled against Ellie. Season 5 is another possible stopping point. They didn't know if they were going to get renewed, so they ensured that season 5 ended with the images of a great new green planet that Monty had found for everyone. And if you want to stop somewhere, I would recommend there. But honestly, just watch the whole thing. I think the entire show's fantastic. But if you don't want to see Bellamy's fate, I understand. My love for the season 1 finale. It's the only episode that reminds me of the feeling I had when I watched the show for the first time. As soon as the song The Other Side comes on, I get so hype. The dirty, grungy visuals is what I love about this show, especially the contrast at the end when Clark wakes up in a bright white room. And we didn't know what the F was about to happen. It's perfection. The last two episodes of season 1, We Are Grounders Part 1 and 2, is probably where I fell in love with this show. The song that is being referred to here is The Other Side by Woodkid, and I still listen to it this day. It sounds amazing and it matches the scene perfectly. In the end, the group is attacked, and we head back to the camp and we get probably the best speech in the show. We are grounders now.
We're on the ground now. And that means we are grounders. Yeah! Grounders with guns. Damn right.
This scene also acts as a great lesson to our characters that they can't just run. They're going to have to stand and face what's coming. 10 times. Is it healthy that I've watched the series 10 times already and planning to watch it again?
How many times a week?
Like three, four times, maybe.
I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Moving on. Weird Skulls in Earth Skills Season 1, Episode 2. Maybe I missed this, but what creatures do the Weird Skulls belong to? Clark and the group come across them when they are running through the forest. Now, this is again one of the possible abandoned storylines. It's likely just a random freak drainer, which they may have put later in the show just to explain these skulls and the characters seen by Octavia. It's possible they always use this as a subversion of expectations to try and not show who the enemy was going to be right away. We didn't know it was going to be grounders early, we thought it may have been creatures or something mutated, whereas it was just normal human beings. Let's end on this one. What if? What if Wells never died and Jahar never went out to look for the City of Light? Or if Jahar never landed in the desert and not having someone to tell him about the existence of the coal? No Ellie would have happened, less people would have died, and most importantly, no one would have warned anyone about Primefire, and they would be clueless until the rain. Just food for thought. I couldn't agree more. This is one of the very Deus Ex Machina scenes in the show, and it's very convenient that all of a sudden there was a way for Jahar to get off the Ark. I personally really didn't like this decision. I feel like it really discredited Jahar's sacrifice that he made to get everybody else to the ground. If you think back to this season, there was a very powerful scene where Kane was standing up to manually release the stations that were going to fall to Earth, and yet Jahar was already there. And I think this would have been a better ending for this character. Not that the one in Season 4 was bad, just that it perhaps wasn't as good. Anyway, everyone, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.